right, check 1, 2. Just checking to see if you can hear me okay and see me okay. I actually did go live last Monday, but of course, if you were on Facebook, there was the whole Facebook debacle. So I tried to go live, but it didn't work. If you were on YouTube, of course, we were chatting. But anyway, just let me know, say hello, let me know where you're from, and we'll go ahead and get started with this week's Monday Guitar Motivation. Hey, Ronald, how you doing? KS is here. Very nice. Kush is here. Russ is here. Mike Rudolph is here. How you doing, Mike? Tim is here. Very nice. Let's see here. Tom says Norway calling. Very nice. Jay Murph is here from Illinois. How you doing, bud? Stine time. Yes, it is. Ryan is here. Louie is here. How you doing? From Puerto Rico. It's nice to see you. Jason is here from Vancouver. And Carl, hey, bud. Ronald from Ohio. Ragnus from Estonia. Very cool. Michael Bay is here. How you doing, buddy? Let's see here. Yes, from Birmingham. Very cool. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. So what we're going to be doing today, and I've actually got next week planned out too. I think next week's going to be a really good one for you as well. But this week what we're going to be talking about is some things that as teachers, not that we do them incorrectly, because that's not true at all, but just learning the difference between fundamental practice and creative playing, improv, whatever it might be. Okay? Let's see here. Just say hello to a couple more people here. Eric Sparks is here. Very nice. Akiva is here from Long Island. Very cool. Stevie is here from Massachusetts. Very cool. Arno is here. I'm having a good day, Arno. I hope you are too. Johnny is here. Very cool. Alpha is here. Ryan is here. Thank you, everybody. Marco's here. Thank you, everybody. So awesome. We already have a lot of people here. So let's go ahead and start it. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I wanted to give you something to think about. Now, in my years of teaching, when I'm teaching people about fundamental practice, right? It might be something where we're going, something like that. And we're trying to develop our finger dexterity, and we're trying to develop synchronization and, understanding that when we're picking, we're dealing with, dynamics and trying to make sure that the pinky isn't quieter than the first finger or whatever it might be, and everything sounds smooth and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so then what we do is we start moving into playing scales, right? So maybe one of the first scales that you learn how to play might be the pentatonic scale, which again, I say that because it is one of the first scales we learn how to play, but it's also one of the most important scales we learn how to play, certainly from a rock and blues perspective. So if I take that scale, right, I take this A minor pentatonic, right? Now, as teachers, we teach people to practice that up and down, right? You're learning how to alternate pick or however it is you're approaching this. And sometimes we even make those into exercises where you're going to go. And then we incorporate a metronome in there, and this is all fundamental practice. I actually have a guitar course that was just released not very long ago about developing a practice routine, and this is something that we talk about. So fundamental practice is an essential part of your daily or weekly practice routine, whatever, trying to develop your ability, not just how fast you can play, but how strong you are in, certain aspects of your picking and different kinds of things like that, to develop your confidence and your ability of being able to play very smooth and comfortable and clean, right? That's kind of the whole point. What I found, though, over a period of time of teaching that was one thing that I wasn't doing as well as a teacher when I was younger, was trying to make the transition of understanding fundamental practice to creative practice, right? Which is why a lot of times when people play, they say, well, how come my solos always sound like I'm just playing scales? Well, part of the reason is because we teach you that as teachers, and we're not always aware that maybe we haven't explained to you the reality of what goes into an improvisation or a creative, situation you might find yourself. Maybe you're writing something or whatever it might be. So today what I thought I would talk about a little bit, hello, Chris, just saying hi to a couple people here. Rito is here, very nice. Brian is here. Peter is here. Mike Warren is here. Josh is here. Hey, everybody. Marco is here. Lawrence is here. Thank you, everybody. It's awesome that you're spending time with me. I sure do appreciate that. So Here's what I want you to understand is I remember when I was younger and I was learning how to play, and maybe you can relate to this. Okay, I was learning how to play the first position of A minor pentatonic. We'll start there, and I just showed you that, right? So I'm learning how to play 1-4, 1-3, 1-3, 1-3, 1-4, 1-4. And before I go on, I want to preface this. I really do believe that if you can, to learn to use all 4 of your fingers is very, very, very important. Like just learning how to play with 3 fingers. Listen, you can learn how to play amazing with however many fingers. That's you. I'm just saying, if you've got 4 functional fingers, it is beneficial at certain times to be able to use any of those 4 fingers in various combinations of those, right? So just keep that in mind as we talk about this, because you might do things differently than what I'm doing them right now, and it's okay. I just want to say that I think that's very important, okay? So back to this. So as I'm learning how to play this first position, I'm learning how to play it as 1-4, 1-3, 1-3, 1-3, 1-4, 1-4. So I'm getting comfortable with using my pinky and all that sort of thing. And then you move into the second position, and I always hated the second position because if I'm playing it in that fundamental aspect, with the proper fingers, like I always used to explain to people, and I still do, that, you know, when you're playing rudimentary stuff, you've got 4 fingers that can cover 4 frets. Now, needless to say, you can cover more, right? But you usually don't do something where maybe your first finger's on the 5th fret and then your pinky's on the 6th fret. Like, that doesn't make a lot of logical sense. If you're playing a sequence of something, let's say, you know, whatever it might be, you're thinking about the fingers relating to the fret, and then that finger now has a job to do depending on which fret you're playing, right? That sort of thing. You know, as opposed to, you know, trying to do something like that, you're assigning fingers to frets. So when I got to the second position of A minor pentatonic, it looks like this. It goes 8-10, 7-10, 7-10, 7-9, 8-10, 8-10. So in that line of thinking, I'm playing from the 7th fret to the 10th fret. So the rudimentary, fundamental, way of fingering this would make sense to be 8-10, 7-10, 7-10. So what I'm doing is playing my middle to my pinky, my first to my pinky, my first to my pinky, my first to my third, and then my middle pinky, okay? So if that makes sense, now if we go to the real world, I'm going to try and get caught up with some of these. There's just a million comments here saying hello, and I'm telling y'all, thank you so much for being here. But I want to try and scroll down if I can here. There we go. Awesome. So here's the deal. When learning how to play that, in the real world, I can't think of a time where I would ever want to be on my middle and my pinky at the same time. Unless it was a sequence, you know, maybe where I'm playing 3 notes on a string, then I would do it all the time. But if I had the option of playing first and third versus second and fourth, I would always opt for the first and third. Now, that doesn't mean that there might be a time in your playing where you wind up on the second and fourth and you got to make it work. It happens. But let's be real. That's what I want to talk to you about today, is if I was playing this second position and I was doing it not from a fundamental perspective of, you know, finger development, strength, you know, whatever that is. If I was playing this second position in a real world position, or a real world mindset, I should say, I would play it as first finger, third finger. Let me switch cameras here. So I'm playing 8th to 10th fret, but instead of playing 2 to 4, I would play 1 to 3. But then that would screw up the next string, because then the next string, I've got to move back and play 1 to 4. Okay? Well, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll play that as 1 to 3. And it's not because I'm not capable with my pinky, it's because it makes more sense in my head, in what I'm going to show you next, to play it as the same fingers. Now that means when I get to the third string, I'm either going to play 1 to 3, or I'm going to play 1 to 2. Which almost makes more sense with the way I'm playing this right now. You see that? And then... So the way I play that in the real world, and again, I say real world meaning if you were in the creative mindset, if you think of it that way, I would be playing 1, 3, on 8 and 10, 1, 3 on 7 and 10, 1, 3 on 7 and 10, 1, 2 on 7 and 9, and then 1, 3 on 7 and 10 and 7 and 10 again. So my first finger is being used the entire time. Now, that doesn't mean I'm always going to play it that way, because here's the thing I wanted to get across today, is whenever you're building something, you always have to remember that you are going to be affected by where you're coming from and where you're going to. Let's say you're trying to improvise, you're trying to make something up and you're working on, again, diatonic, pentatonic, whatever. But you have to understand that where you're coming from is going to affect the fingers that you wind up on, or where you're going to, or what you're trying to set up, right? So let me show you something, for instance. Let's say I was in that A minor pentatonic position, and now you'll see I'm using 1, 3, 1, 3. Well, why would I do that if I've got my pinky available? Well, it depends. If I was doing something maybe where I want to go, and I want to reach out to that 10th fret with my pinky to try and make some sort of lick or whatever it might be that I'm doing, I'm pre-setting myself up by playing this, because if I did this, I don't have that available. Now I could shift up, but that doesn't, it's not near as efficient, and it's not going to be as quick to grab. So if I knew I was going to that, that would be a reason why I would set myself up with the wrong fingers, if you will, thinking about it from the fundamentals mindset, right? The rudimentary mindset. So let's say we're playing and we're going to shift into another position. So I'll show you a couple of different examples of this. So let's say I was in A minor pentatonic again, and I'm going to shift into the second position. So I know one of the places I'm going to go here is up in this spot right up here. Especially if I'm playing blues, right? All that. Which all requires me to be in this first and third finger mentality, because I've got my pinky here for my blues note. I got my major third, and again, I'm not trying to talk over your head or anything, so if you don't know what those things are, don't stress about it. Okay, but just think about that. So as I'm playing, I want to get set up in that position, so I don't want to slide in with my pinky, because I'm going to have to reposition myself anyway. So because of where I'm coming from, I'm going to go into this with my third finger, which sets me up, you see? So I want to be aware of that. Just like if I was playing in this first position and I slid into the second position on the 5th or 4th strings, I would wind up on my third finger, because that's where I would normally be here. Right? I'd be on my third finger right there. So if I slid up, I'd slide up on my third finger and wind up on the, again, wrong finger if you were thinking of it fundamentally. Now, if I was playing something, let's say I wanted to continue on to the third position, so I'm moving like this. Now, if you know your third position, I'm on the 10th fret here. I'm playing 10, 12, 10, 12, 10, 12. 9, 12, 10, 13, 10, 12. Now again, if you don't know that, that isn't what this lesson's about. So I don't want you to stress out and go, I don't know that position. You can learn it. You can watch this video as many times as you want if you want to go back and learn that. But my point is, if I'm shifting from my first to my second to my third position, and the second position is that 7, 10 in the center there, I'm not going to shift out of that and try and shift into my pinky just because fundamentally I'm supposed to be on that finger. You see, I would be very comfortable just using my first and third and then setting myself up from there. Okay? So there's lots of different ways. Here's another example I want to show you. Okay? Let's say I was playing in the third position on the top here, which is going to be 10, 13, 10, 12. Which would be the proper fingers for that, right? And let's say I was going to slide into the fourth position. I'm going to move to the third string here. Right there. I'm going to slide in with my third finger. Okay. Now, if I did that, if I slid in on my third finger, it enables me to do something like this. Let's say I wanted to cut across. I wanted to play 14, 13, 12. Okay, well, that's the perfect fingers for that. And then wherever I want to go from there. You see? But let's say in coming off of that, for whatever reason, I was on these fingers. I went to my third finger here on that 13. Hopefully this is kind of making sense to you. And then I wound up on my middle finger here. So I slid with my middle finger, okay? Well, now I don't have enough fingers to play 14, 13, 12. I'm in the wrong position. Now, in saying wrong, that's not really a proper way of saying that because I could do something else. But what I can't do is 14, 13, 12 without some major reconstruction of what I'm doing right now with my fingers. So if I came across this and slid into that, I'd wind up going at it. I always call these escape routes, if you've ever heard me talk about those, is when you wind up on a particular finger in a particular position, it sets you up for the next thing that you're going to be doing, or at least it prohibits other things that you might have done depending on what fingers you're on, you see? Because there's just certain things that you can do very comfortably in certain positions versus other positions, depending on what fingers you're on, you see? So the point of this, the bottom line of today is, for you to work on this week, is if you're working on improvisation and you're learning how to meander and all these things I teach you, what I need you to understand is that your fingers will not always be fundamentally correct with the rudimentary way that you practice scales. And that's not a bad thing. It's for you to get used to understanding what fingers you wind up with when you're shifting, because that's half the battle. Because as you get into a certain position, if you're in a certain fingering, like again, if I was here and I was using these fingers, I wouldn't go into that lick. I wouldn't do that because I'm not on that finger. But what I might do is move into another idea that takes me from this into whatever it is I'm going to do from there. So think about that. And one way to approach this when you're practicing these things is always remember that, in my opinion anyway, your fretboard is really cut into three different ways. You've got a horizontal movement, vertical movement, You've got a horizontal movement, and then you've got arpeggios, which we'll call cutting or slicing through the strings. So when you're playing something and you come across an idea and you want to go, right? So you're not just playing straight up and down. I'm in E minor now, but, and you're not just playing horizontally. Right, which is great. I love thinking about my fretboard in those three ways because I play very differently when I play vertically versus horizontally. And then again, the slicing idea of being able to play arpeggio ideas. But I understand when I'm playing like an arpeggio like that, like right now I'm playing a G major 7 arpeggio. So and again, don't worry about it, but because again, you can always go back and watch what I'm doing if you want to steal any of this stuff. But see, I wind up on my pinky. So then my question is, well, what do I do? Well, I could go backwards into something else, right? If I would, or wherever, or I could go into something else. Or maybe just a half step up. But the point is that I'm on the pinky at that point and I need to make a choice. Okay? Now, I don't have to continue on with the first string. I could have gone back down into something else, but this is something I need to get comfortable with, you see? So I'm not as worried about that the fact that I'm using the proper fingering that I was doing when I was practicing the scale to develop my speed and all those sorts of things. Because remember, when I go back into my vertical playing, that's when I'm going to start thinking about, well, how do we want to approach this? Right? If I wanted that lick, or I wanted that idea, I'm going to use that proper fingering that I've practiced fundamentally over and over and over. That's really what licks are, right? It's the meandering in between that gets me from there. Like if I play that, and I get to the top, and I got to figure out where to go after that. And the finger that I'm on is going to kind of dictate which direction I'm going to go. And I know that might be a little bit complicating, but if that makes sense, or at least to some degree, that's what I want you to start thinking about, is that movement idea and how it's going to be different than when you're fundamentally practicing, okay? So if you keep practicing thinking about that idea, I'd like sweeping, Marcy says. Late as always, Jason says. I'm glad you're here, Jason. So anyway, if that makes sense, let's see here. Marcy says, when soloing, sometimes I'm not sure what keys to go to. Well, Marcy, that's a great thing to mention, but we're not going to go through that today, but because that's a little bit different conversation, but I'm glad at least you're thinking about those sorts of things. So again, just to summarize and get out of here, because I know you got to get back to your life, but when you're practicing your improv or your creative mindset, always remember, as you're shifting in and out, don't feel bad because you wind up on a finger that is not in the right place in what you practice in a fundamental sense. And I always go back, if you know what I'm talking about, if you go to that second position of A minor pentatonic or minor pentatonic, it used to drive me insane that I would wind up on my middle and my pinky because I just would never use... There'd be no time that I would ever elect to use those fingers. If I mandatorily got into a situation where I had to do that, of course, that's fine. But I would always elect to use my first and third if I was playing a whole step movement, 5 to 7 or 8 to 10 or whatever it might be. I would definitely use that. So that just always just drove me crazy because, again, it's not that I don't want to develop my middle and my pinky and the strength between those two. Of course I do. But if you and I were playing in a band together and we're on stage and I'm going to play, I'm not going to force myself to use that fingering because, well, that's the way I was practicing it when I was practicing. You know what I mean? I want to do what feels best to me, so the execution of whatever it is I'm trying to do is as best as I can make it for that situation for both me and for anybody who's listening. All right? So take care. Stay positive. Next week I got another really great one for you, so be watching for that. I'm on Central Time, so usually it's around 11, 12 o'clock, something like that I'll go live. But I got a really good one for you to think about next week as well. And it's still going to be based off single notes and soloing and that sort of thing. And then after that, I'll go back to doing some chordal stuff and things like that. So I keep kind of getting everybody, all right? So take care. Stay positive. Remember, if you get a chance, head over to guitarzoom.com, check out my guitar courses, check out the membership, all that sort of thing. I very much appreciate you hanging out with me and supporting what I do, and like, share, all that sort of thing if you can. So take care, stay positive.